Hey everyone, welcome to the Giving Town podcast, brought to you by the Joyful Roberts Group, a Newberg-based family real estate team where we help your family make the right move. I'm your host, Danielle Roberts, and today I'm going to be sharing my conversation with Leo Keelan about Hope Chaplain. When someone experiences a crisis or tragedy, most of us don't know where to turn, what to say, or what the next real steps are that you have to take. But Hope Chaplain is an organization right here in our community whose entire mission is to step directly into those chaotic, grief-filled moments and bring a calming, supportive presence. So in today's episode, Leo is going to share how Hope Chaplain got started and the personal journey that led him into this work. We'll talk about what a typical week looks like when your job revolves around navigating trauma, what it looks like to actually show up for someone in their worst moments, how Hope Chaplain collaborates alongside our local police and fire departments, the gaps we currently have in community crisis care, and practical ways that you can get involved and support this mission. Well, we've got a lot to cover, so let's go ahead and get started. All right. Well, Leo, thank you for being here with me today, and appreciate your patience with me getting set up. As I mentioned, I've been off duty for the most part with my newborn, and I'm just kind of now getting back into the flow of things, but not firing on all cylinders necessarily. But anyway, it's great to have you here.
Well, thank you, Daniel. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, it's funny. It's also been a while in the making. I can't remember the first time you shared or I heard you share, and I think we talked about doing an episode, and now here we are. I feel like it's been at least 2 years later. We're finally doing it, so it's good to.
Been a while.
It's good to get started.
Yeah.
So, for people who haven't heard of Hope Chaplain, can you just give like a quick overview of like what it is? Like, give someone a framework of what it is we're talking about today.
Yeah. So, Hope Chaplain is a first responder chaplaincy, right? And then, so that's a chaplain who helps first responders out emotionally, spiritually, psychologically, and then is also somebody who goes out in the public and helps them out and with trauma, grief, or, really any kind of form of chaos. So I'm available, or Hope Chaplain in general is available to the first responders, their families, and the public as well, and the community.
And then what areas do you serve?
Yeah, so me, so Hope Chaplain, which is primarily me, I chaplain for 10 different agencies.
Okay.
So cover, in a way, all of Oregon, but I'll just kind of break down all the agencies I chaplain for directly. So Hamady Fire, Aurora Fire, Dundee Fire, McMinnville Fire, and TVF&R. So 5 on the fire side. And then I chaplain for Newberg PD, the Dundee, or McMinnville PD, Oregon State Police out of McMinnville, the Yano County Sheriff Office, and the Washington County Sheriff Office as well. Okay. And then I'm the chaplain for the Oregon Fire Chiefs Association for the state of Oregon. So I go around to conferences or events and things. I'm involved in the Fallen Firefighter Memorial every year. And if there's any line of duty death, I'll be involved in that and helping the department go through that.
Yeah. So how did you get into this line of work? Like, what's your background?
Yeah. So I used to be in aviation. So born and raised in North Dakota. My father, he was a police officer. My mom was an emergency room nurse. So back in Minot, North Dakota, I eventually joined the National Guard, the Army to pay for college. I went to college for avionics. Okay. And then I was hired out here at Columbia Helicopters in 2002. I came out here, me and my new wife at the time, and we lived in Woodburn for about 12 years. So part of my journey to becoming a chaplain was in 2007. My daughter was 20 months old and diagnosed with a rare form of cancer, stage 4. Initially, the doctors just told us if we wanted to go home on hospice, it was okay. It was our first child, and as a parent and a believer, I gave it over to God and the doctors, and we said we're going to do this. Side note, though, one of the hardest things I did for that was signing the papers to give my daughter chemo because I knew what it was, right? It's like giving your child Drano. Like, it is just the worst of drugs, right? So that was hard. But so my daughter battled that for 9 months up at Dornbeckers. She's currently 20, so we're so thankful for God for that. She's going through the nursing program in North Dakota. But after my daughter's journey through that, a few years after that, then my wife got cancer, initially in the colon, and hers was a rare form of cancer as well. It's an unclassified sarcoma. So she battled that for about 4 years, and then a year on hospice, and eventually had died from that. So just going through that kind of shaped my heart, my faith, and my life. In 2020-ish, I just had it on my heart to serve God at a greater capacity. I was always involved in my church, Grace Chapel in Wilsonville. And I prayed a dangerous prayer. I said, "Hey, God, I want you to use me." Shortly after that prayer, our church started his outreach, the ministry to help individuals with grief. So I volunteered for that, had to go up to Vancouver for some training. And in the training on grief and trauma, I heard about this kind of chaplain program. It was a 12-month program. You could do it easily with a job. And I just felt called to go through all the training. As I did some more of the training, I ran into some chaplains who were at different agencies, and they said, "Well, you should get a hold of Public Safety Chaplaincy. It's a nonprofit group that helps chaplains find an agency to serve with." So I said, "Yeah, I'll check into that," right? Having parents who were, public service and all that, I felt like that would be a good thing to do. So I initially had planned to be a chaplain, just as a volunteer, like 1 day a week I'd be on call and I would help out if needed. The first agency I got on with was TVF&R. And as I went out on the calls in the public, it was the most powerful thing I had ever done in my life. So I prayed the dangerous prayer. I said, "God, I'm all in. If you show me a way to do this full time, I'm in." And it's interesting because I had a good job. I was a manager at Columbia Helicopters Aurora Airport. I'd been there for 22 years, doing great, climbing the ladder, and no reason to leave, right? But this calling, and that's ultimately what chaplaincy is, was just so powerful. And it's truly the first time in my life, like, my path was so clear before me, because just the door continued to open. So I got a 3-year grant turned in my notice at work and said I quit. I'm going to be a missionary as a chaplain now. So that's kind of how I got here.
Yeah. So that must have been, because I've had some of those dangerous prayers and those experiences, and you're like, how is this going to work? And a lot of times you get the call before you get the resources for it, right?
Yeah. Yes. Right. Yes. Yeah. Well, and that's been a big part of it for me, and a blessing along the way. Is just an example of that. So Wilsonville, Toyota. I became a chaplain, and I'm like, okay, I need to be smart with my money because I work for a non-profit. I have to raise all my own income, and I had a leased vehicle at the time, and I'm like, I need to get rid of this. It's a big car payment, right?
Yeah.
So for 3 months, God had it on my heart, to walk into Wilsonville Toyota and ask them for a car. And I'm like, well, they're not going to give me a car, right? What are the odds of that? So finally, after 3 months, I finally said, well, I don't have anything to lose, right? So I walked into Wilsonville Toyota. I met the first salesman and I said, hey, I'm a first responder chaplain. I was just curious if you guys would do a courtesy vehicle. And the guy was like, well, I don't know. I'll go ask. So he asked the sales manager. Her husband was the general manager. And within a half hour, I had a 2022 Highlander all-wheel drive for $1.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And it truly was a God thing because I just had walked in, right? And the salesman I happened to bump into is the one who handles all these kind of programs.
Yes.
I mean, so it was just the right person, the right time. And yeah, so I've had that car now for 3 years.
Okay.
Just a huge blessing, but it's just an example from my view of how God provides, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, what does it look like? Because, most people haven't gone through an experience where they need a chaplain.
Which is a good thing.
Which is a good thing. But so many people don't quite understand what it looks like, or like, they hear chaplain, like, well, isn't that just like, for like the military or at hospitals or something? So what does it look like on like a day-to-day basis? Like, what is the work you actually do, if that makes sense? Like, you get on a call, you go there, and what does that look like?
Yeah, well, first, I'll explain a little bit of the difference of chaplaincies, because you have, as you mentioned, the military chaplain, and then you have hospital chaplains, hospice, first responder. You might have a school chaplain or a workplace chaplain. Typically for the military and hospitals, you have to be a board certified chaplain. So that's a master's degree,
Okay.
some form of seminary, and all that. I always kind of joke, but it's true, to be a first responder chaplain, it's truly a Wild West out there. It's almost as simple as a chief going up to you and saying, hey, Daniel, you're my chaplain, and that's it, which is dangerous because you can get a lot of bad chaplains in a sense. So yeah, as a first responder chaplain, like I don't have seminary, I don't have a master's degree, right? I used to be in avionics. I have a strong faith, and my church has commissioned me as a chaplain, so that's how I have clergy status. But just to make it a little different, of depending on the type of chaplains, and as a first responder chaplain, I'm not in a box, right? I'm not in a hospital, and I'm not only at a police station. I'm all over. So for me, a typical call, just as an example, is, it could happen anytime, right? Emergencies aren't like daytime hours.
Yeah.
So, I could get a call at 2 a.m. So my phone will go off through an app. So if I get paged out through dispatch, then I'll radio in, say, I'm on my way, I'm 20 minutes out or whatever. I'll get on scene. I'll meet with the officer or the fire department on scene, get kind of briefed into like what's happening, who's here, And then I'll meet with the family on scene. I was, I always kind of tell the family, like, hi, I'm Leo. I'm the chaplain. I'm just here for support and to help guide you through the next steps. Because you think of chaplains, and sometimes people have this impression it's going to be this old pastor and he's going to want to pray. Well, I'll pray if you want it, but I'm not going to just pray, right? If you're a Buddhist, the Muslim, I'm going to meet you where you're at, right? So I help that family through those next kind of few hours of grief, what to do in the next, calling the funeral home. Sometimes I help with scene cleanup because a lot of people don't realize after the emergency's over, everybody leaves, but there's a lot of aftermath. So as a chaplain, I can help with that. But the biggest thing is bringing a sense of calm, bringing in the next to the steps, and then pulling their support system in so I can hand off the care. Because I'm only going to be there for a few hours. Average call is 2 to 3 hours.
Okay.
Sometimes they're longer, but that's about the average.
Here, everyone, quick break from the episode. The Giving Town podcast is brought to you by my real estate team, the Joyful Roberts Group. We're a family-run business located in Newberg, and we are passionate about serving and advising our clients at the highest level possible. Our goal is to serve you with excellence, get you the results you're looking for, and help you enjoy the process. If you've appreciated this podcast, the best way you can help us out is by introducing us to any of your friends and family who are thinking about buying or selling a home anywhere within 45 minutes of Newberg. All right, thanks for listening, and back to the show. Yeah. How do you handle that? I mean, it almost seems like on a daily, if not weekly basis, you're on the scene where someone's, died and someone's lost a loved one. I mean, seems like you personally would be going through like a lot of your own trauma. Like, how do you manage that? Yeah, well, and that's where, as a chaplain, a lot of chaplains have their own kind of trauma past. And it's actually true for a lot of first responders as well. If you look at their ACEs scores, which is their adverse childhood environment scores, a lot of us have higher scores of like, well, we had these things happen growing up. Well, that gave us a sense of resiliency, but also compassion for others who are going through their own trials. Prime example in 2 Corinthians 1-4, he comforts us in all of our troubles so that we can comfort others. So for me, it's the lens at which I look at the call or this situation. So for me personally, it's the lens of my faith, right? So here's kind of a hard example for people, but if I go on a kid's death, so the child who died in their sleep, right? Well, that's a pretty hard situation, right? You have mom and dad who just lost a newborn. Those are super hard on the first responders as well, right? Yeah. Almost everybody has watery eyes. Yeah. But for me, I feel at peace with the child because I believe that child is in heaven, right? So that brings me peace for the child. Now, obviously, I feel, for mom and dad. So I focus on how do I guide them and help them get through this horrific situation. I meet with other chaplains every week, and we get together and we call share, right? So it's a peer support group of chaplains.
And we get together and you say, so what happened this week? Did anybody have some hard ones? Did we learn anything from the calls? So we kind of share information and get smarter and better.
Yeah.
At what we do. But, and I have a whole lot of mental health training, right? So I train first responders on mental health. So I practice the things I preach. As an example, I have a clinician. So how can I tell a police officer, you should have a clinician because you see a lot of horrible things and I see a lot of horrible things and yet I don't have one. So I have one, right? I have this Alpha STEM device from my clinician that you can clip on your ears and it fires in the brain. There are so many amazing tools available to help us through trauma, to help us through anxiety and stress. So I use them. I have a plunge at home as well, so I hop in there. I jog. I have a Harley, so hopping on my Harley is just a great way to decompress and relax.
Yeah. And so that was another question I was going to have, because you serve all these different agencies and you get called and the first thing is you're helping the family. Do you also in those times help the first responders themselves? Like if they, they're on the scene and they, like you mentioned, like a sudden infant death, the responder going into that, they could be really affected by that. So how do you balance, like, okay, I'm sure the family's first priority, and then later, then you talk to the other first responders. Is that kind of how that goes?
So
okay.
Typically, so if it's interesting, of the 10 agencies I chaplain for, I would say half of them I'm only there for the department personnel.
Okay.
And the other half I'm there for both.
Okay.
So whether it's the public or the personnel. As an example, we had a pretty horrible tragedy a year ago in a town, and I was doing the ride along with a police officer, and so we went to this call, but rather than helping that family in that instance, I was there for about 10 minutes. And as the crew was clearing, the chief had said, "Hey, chap, go check on the crew because at that department, they're my priority."
Okay.
So we went back. I did a diffusing, they call it. So we have training on diffusing debriefs. It's a critical incident stress system that we operate under. And, so I helped that crew talk through the call, right? And give them good coping skills to go home that night and hopefully be okay, right?
Yeah.
So that's an example of it just depends on where I'm at. We had a situation here for Newberg, and I ended up helping do a debrief after a week. We get back together. Everybody involved in the call. We have a clinician in the room as well, and I helped facilitate a debrief, which is a more in-depth 7-step process of going through the call and a nice calm environment and allowing everybody to process all the information from the call, because the goal is always to prevent post-traumatic stress injury, right? So we have these different tools and training to help them through that. Yeah.
Yeah. What have you found, like, and I know you mentioned like these steps, and I guess without getting into the detail of all of it, like what are the things that you find like really help people? Because everyone responds differently to trauma. Some people are absolutely hysterical, where they're, screaming, crying, whatever it might be. Other people just go completely stoic and cold. And I guess you just have to, find out, like, okay, what does this person need? I'm sure after doing this for years, you found out, like, how do you respond to different people? Like,
well, and it's every call is unique, right? Like, I never know what I'm walking into, right? Because I'm going into somebody's house typically, which is very interesting to see the homes, because you see homes on the outside all the time, but first responders and myself get to go in these homes, and we see a lot of things that you don't see on the outside, like a hoarder home in a beautiful neighborhood, which you wouldn't even know, right?
Yeah.
Or, other situations. But as soon as I walk in the door, I do a 360 assessment of scanning the walls. So what's on the walls here? Do they have a cross on the wall? Do they have a Buddha in the corner? Do they have family photos, right? I'm scanning everything to bring as much information in as I can as I meet with the individuals. And then I size up, like if go in a home and there's 3 family members in the house, right? I'm looking at, okay, who's probably the one in charge here? Who's the one who's calm and able to kind of take charge? That'll be my primary person I'll guide, because they'll hold on to the information.
Yeah.
And then who's the most emotional, the most distraught, perhaps. And then who's the quiet one? Who's the one that's just over there quiet and doesn't say much of anything? A lot of the times it's the quiet ones that we're worried about the most.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah. And so like a great example, I was on a call with a gentleman who lost his wife, and it was a hoarder home. So we were in the hallway because there was nowhere else to sit in this house. So I'm sitting there with the husband who had lost his wife, and he had a different faith background. So it was interesting, because I almost always ask a family, like, do you have a faith background or system of, right? Because if they're a Catholic, okay, can I help get a hold of your priest? If they're a Muslim or a Jew, whoever, can I help get a hold of whoever you have in your life, for your spiritual support. But this gentleman and I, we sat and talked for a half hour. He explained his view on life and religion, and the things had happened in the afterlife, which it wasn't the same as mine. But I just sat there and I listened, and he asked me a few questions about mine, and I explained, well, here's what I believe, right? But the beautiful thing of that interaction is a week after that, he sent me an email thanking me for just sitting there and listening in that hallway, right? So as a chaplain, we are totally non-judgmental, right? I'm just here to help you, right? I don't have any hidden agenda. I'm not here to convert you or do anything. I'm just here to help you get through the next few hours and then guide you hopefully in a healthy direction after this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's, a lot of people might feel like you said, like, oh, was this they might have a preconceived notion of like what's going to happen. They might, be judgmental of you just like, oh, they're probably, going to try to, shove their faith down my throat.
Yeah. I was on a call, and it was very interesting. This lady, her husband had died. She was in a care home like an independent living facility. So it was her and her husband in there. He had died, and as I got there, she turned and looked at me and said, "I don't believe in God," right? And I just kind of smiled that I said, "That's okay. I'm here to just help guide you through the next steps and offer support." I like to almost phrase a chaplain as support services, right? I'm just here to help. I'm here to facilitate and guide, and then, and to be the officer of calm in the chaos. A big thing that's hard to grasp for a lot of us is chaplaincy isn't about fixing anything, right? It's about being present in the calm and offering just that support. And sometimes it's just the ministry of presence, of just somebody there with you in the misery and the margins.
Yeah. And I feel like that's a story that, helps capture like, the impact. I'm curious if you have any other stories that are like, this really captures like the essence of like why you got into this, or like, a place where you went and maybe it was like, seemed like a hopeless situation. And afterwards you feel like, wow, that really, you kind of walk away knowing like I really did make an impact there.
Yeah. Well, I think for all of us chaplains, the thing that warms our heart the most is if the family just says at the end, "Thank you. And thank you for being here." I've been on some calls where I hardly did anything. At least I felt that way. And the family at the end is like, "Oh, you are so amazing. Thank you for everything you did." And then in the back of my head, I'm like, I didn't do much, right? Like,
yeah.
But I showed up first, which is the most important thing, right? So when there's a call, a chaplain has to respond, right? And so having somebody enter in to your misery when they don't have to, and they love on you, because that's the mission, is to love on everybody, and they can feel that through you. I had a family, I was on a call, and this was a care home again, and the elderly mother had died. Her daughter and her husband had arrived, but as I got to the care home, a worker approached me and said, "When you're done, can I talk with you?" And I was like, "Yes, of course." So I go in and I help this family, and we're in this like a boardroom. So we have the director of the care home there, a husband and wife, daughter of the deceased. So I'm explaining, here's how this happens with the medical examiner. Here's how we're going to do the funeral home thing. Here's what's going to happen, and grief and all this kind of stuff, and then they were telling these stories about their loved one, right? But a powerful thing happened is, the daughter said, "I don't know what it is about you, but there's like a glow." And then the director has said, "Yeah, you're like an angel." Now, I don't say that, to say I am anything special, but when you come in with a heart of love and compassion, people feel that, and they can see that just through your presence. After the call, I met with the worker, and she explained her son has been in Portland on drugs, and they haven't heard from him in days, and they're afraid he's dead or something horrible. So I just prayed with her in that moment. I gave her my card. I said, if you need anything, please reach out. 2 days after that, a family member of hers gave me a call and said, hey, we just wanted to give you an update. He was found in Portland. He's okay. And they just thanked me for the prayers. So, it's amazing to see the impact of just showing up, offering support for people. I got, the story of,
yeah. And, it's interesting. I had a whole list of questions that, you kind of actually already went through, but a lot of this, like you have to raise your own funds, right? And where does most of that come from?
Yeah. So as a chaplain, so again, going back to the military is a full-time paid chaplain as an officer in the military. Hospital chaplains are paid from the hospital. Hospice are usually as well, but first responder chaplains are almost always volunteer only. And a lot of that goes back to the day of the fire departments in the 1800s. If they needed some kind of prayer, right, for a family who lost their home, they would call the local pastor or priest, right? And then eventually they would become almost a volunteer for the department as well, right? Like, man, if we need anybody in a crisis, we'll get a hold of the local pastor and he'll head down because it's a small town, and so on and so forth. So it's almost always has been a volunteer role, just like a majority of firefighters in the country are volunteers, right? Mm-hmm. But there's a few of us who this is all we do. Like I don't have a job, and as I had walked away from my employer, it was really interesting, right? Because I'm walking away from a fixed salary. I'm walking away from a 401k, right? I'm walking away from security in a sense of, well, I have a good job, I'm doing good, and everything's going well. And I walked away from health insurance. So as a full-time chaplain, as a missionary, I am completely on my own, right? So I have to get my own insurance. I have to do everything on my own. So I have to fundraise. I do that through the nonprofit Public Safety Chaplaincy. So a lot of my the donations are from private individuals. Mm-hmm. So I don't have a fixed income because the donations fluctuate, right? Yeah. A few of the agencies give me a small stipend, but not all of them. Yeah. And, it's truly, a missionary, but rather than Africa, I'm in the town of Newberg.
Yeah. Yeah. And the reason I ask is because, people, and kind of the reason for this podcast too, is people don't know what they need until they're there, and they're like, that's why you're there. Like most people don't plan out, okay, if this terrible thing happens, what will we do? It's like, it comes by surprise and you're completely at a loss. And so having someone there to help you walk through not just the grief, but also the next steps of like, I'm sure there's like insurance questions, and there's like you said, the funeral home, like all the different things to know, like, okay, it's one thing to deal with the grief, but then all these other things. And like, I don't know if you get into like, okay, you need to contact, their attorney and or find out like, was there a will in place, and like kind of what are these next first steps that you might have to get into just so they have kind of like those next steps, that plan in place. So my point with that being, it's almost like a voluntary insurance that people pay, because like you never know when you're going to be the one who needs the chaplain there, and you being here is a benefit to Newberg. And my other question was, you're serving an area that involves, hundreds of thousands of people. Are there multiple chaplains, or are you kind of like the exclusive one that serves these agencies?
Yeah, great question. So Hope Chaplain, initially, I branded myself as Hope Chaplain. So Public Safety Chaplaincy was the non-profit, and I'm kind of doing business as Hope Chaplain. So they're my kind of branding. Just recently, we filed for Hope Chaplain for its own 501c3. So that'll be occurring. But the goal of that is for Hope Station, which we plan to get outside of Sherwood on Kruger. So that'll be a 5-acre first responder retreat. So I still chaplain through Public Safety Chaplaincy out of the Beaverton area, and they have about 72 chaplains.
Okay.
So a lot of them in the metro area. And there's some other chaplain groups. There's Southern Public Safety Chaplaincy, Central Oregon Public Safety Chaplaincy, and some smaller groups as well. So I would probably guess in Oregon, we're probably 200-ish chaplains all over the state.
Okay.
But as an example, it's not enough, because I chaplain for 10 agencies, and it's not because I'm looking to have this huge list of agencies. It's because they don't have anybody else.
Oh, wow.
So as an example, I'm the only chaplain for Yamhill County Sheriff Office, the only chaplain for Newberg PD, the only chaplain for Mac PD, Mac Fire, TBF&R, the lead chaplain for them. So there's a total of 7 of us. And actually, the only reason I'm here before you currently is because there's another chaplain on duty that helped out, because there's a call here in town I would have been on. So having a team is critical. I'm growing a brand new team for Yamhill County. So taking the model up at TBF&R and saying, okay, so let's have this for the county. So that way every agency has a pool of chaplains to call in and say, I need a chaplain on the scene, right? And all these other chaplains are volunteers, so they're doing maybe a 24-hour block a week on a call, or maybe 2, but and they're on call, right? So the hardest thing about chaplaincy is on call.
That's what I was thinking. I mean, like you never know when you're gonna, you're just sitting down to dinner, you're just going to bed or whatever, and then you get a call and you have to stop everything. And
so for me, it is very seldom you'll see me in the same car as my wife, or my family, because at any moment I could be driving to church Sunday morning, and halfway there I get a call, right? So I'm always ready to go. I have a closet in the back of my car, and I'm not joking about that. I actually have a rack, and I got all my outfits for all the agencies. So I typically have on black pants and boots all the time, and I just switch my hat and top, right? So I just, like, if I get a call, like, this is my third outfit today. So I just switch. I was at a TBF in our event earlier, so I had a hat on. I head down here for this. I throw this on, and then I'll go to the next agency after this, and I'll swap everything again. So, it's very interesting.
Yeah. I almost feel like that's its own kind of stress of just you never have a settled moment where you just have like, or do you ever have time where you can like take a vacation or like?
So the most time I get off is if I can somehow get out of the state.
Okay.
So, but a lot like a pastor, like you never switch it off.
Yeah.
For example, the honor flight out of Portland is having patrons fly to Washington if the DC the next week, so that these old patrons can see their war memorial from Vietnam for World War II. Well, I always help them, and I at their banquet, and I do the invocation, which is a prayer, a blessing over the event and all that. This year they gave me a call because a patron had asked specifically for a chaplain to go with them. So I said, well, I guess that's me, So, I'll be, flying out to Washington to DC, but it's not a vacation per se, right? Because I'm going to be a chaplain on that whole trip, doing amazing veteran from Vietnam, right? So, I don't have a whole lot of time off. It's hard to get a day off, right? Because I'm always on call, because if I'm off at TBF and R, for example, well, I'm on for the other 9 agencies.
Yeah.
So it's a challenge. Although I'll say the greatest or the hardest thing I do, which, I get asked a lot, like, what's the hardest thing of what you do? And it's honestly fundraising. That is like ick. Like, I like it, right? It's hard to ask for money, right? And it's like, I want to serve the bottom line, right? Like, I want to go out and help.
Yeah.
And I get to do that every day. Like, I am so blessed. I get to just walk with individuals in those darkest of the moments and bring hope, and light in the darkness. And it's just, it's amazing. But yes, it's a burden to carry, because
What I was thinking, how do you, when you are on a call, if these calls last 2 to 3 hours, there could be multiple other calls happening at the same time, but you can't just up and leave that one to go to another one. So how does that work?
Well, it's kind of funny you say that, because actually, last Friday, I was on a call up in Beaverton area, for example, and while I was on that call, there was another call that came out for a chaplain, and it was 5 minutes away. And I was the only available chaplain, so I told the family, hey, I'm going to go check on this other situation, but I'll be back. So I went to that one to kind of assess, and luckily it was a lesser of a need. So I was there for about 20 minutes and then I went back into that original family. So that's rare, but and that's why for TVFNR, for example, our goal is to have 2 on per day, because who do have some times as they overlap.
Yeah.
So,
how many events do you typically have in a day, or calls that you're having to go to?
Yeah, so it's like average, 5 to 7 a week.
Okay.
Depending, right? Sometimes it's less, but I would say 5 a week is a good average.
Okay.
Right.
So it's not like you're going to, like, usually you're not going to multiple every day or type of thing. Okay. No. Okay.
Yeah.
So you have a little bit of a time where, like, you're always on call, but you're not like always, because I'm thinking, like, I had in my imagination that you're always running like to like 3 to 5 events a day or something else.
I mean,
but
it has occurred.
Yeah.
To where we've had 3 or 4 in a day, and that's a very draining time. Some of the calls, like the longest one I had, I was there for about 8 hours.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And it's just emotionally draining, right? Where it's like, man, I need to go home and recharge and all of that. So, but that's why it truly helps to have a team.
Yeah.
That's the goal, is to build up a team of chaplains to help out.
Yeah.
So
now, what do you feel like this, actually, I'll switch my question because you mentioned, the hardest thing is sales, and I totally understand that, and in my business too, like, the work is usually not that hard. I'm very competent. You do a good job, kind of like with you, like, you're good at what you do, but then you have to tell other people that you're good at what you do. And you're like, how do I do this in a way that doesn't come across as arrogant or that people feel like I'm trying to manipulate them or pressure them? That's just not your heart. Yeah. But how, like, if someone does want to give, because you still have to give the people who want to help the opportunity to do so, right? So how do people, like, what does it look like for someone to support you?
Yeah, so this is the best the way is to go on to hopechaplain.com, and they can make a tax-free, it's a donation through there. It'll go through Public Safety Chaplaincy, but so we have our private donors can either send in a check to Public Safety Chaplaincy, and then just have my name on the memo of the check, or again, hopechaplain.com, and go on there, and there's a donate tab on there, so you could do credit card or bank or draft, and all those options on there. I have donors who will do a one-time donation, or we have those who sign up, as the monthly donor. And for us, I hate the word donor, because it's really a partner, right? Like, I can't be the hands and feet of Jesus on my own. I need those who want to partner with me in this ministries, of offering hope to the hurting. And we do have a fundraiser. I don't know when this is going to go out, but April 25th at Powell Palace.
Okay. Unfortunately, I think we'll be probably after that when this is published. But
yeah. Well, and then I know June 27th, Hamady Fire Department is going to do a bingo.
Okay.
And the proceeds will go to Hope Station. So,
okay.
A lot of opportunities, but yeah, you can follow Hope Chaplain on Facebook or Instagram.
Okay.
Or LinkedIn, and go to the website, and
Yeah. Just a couple more questions. What would it feel like is something that this role has taught you? And I'm sure you're continuing to learn lessons, but like taught you just about kind of people and about, and I guess also about like life and like the things that matter in life. Because, you're going a direction of what you feel is important, and tragedies often kind of help center you into like what actually matters. But what do you feel like you've learned from this?
Yeah. So a few of the big takeaways for me is first, you can't take it with you. Right. So I see over and over again, death. Well, I see what the family has to do with everything that's left, right? Because the person who died doesn't get to take anything with them, right? So it's really powerful to see that, and how the most important thing isn't the stuff, it's the memories. So if I could encourage anybody in life, it is truly focus on the memories. Focus on the legacy. You're going you'll leave behind. I like to read the Linda Ellis poem at funerals all the time, the dash, and it's all about the dash between the date you're born and the date you die. Well, how'd you live your dash in between? And I hate to say this to everybody, but we're all going to die.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so what's important in life, right? And it's not the stuff. So, and the second thing is everybody has a testimony. Everybody has a story to tell. Take the time to ask somebody to tell you about who they are or what they have been through. It's I get to hear it all the time, and it's truly amazing. I mean, there's just a lot of great stories and testimonies of going through trials and tribulations, and I don't know, it's just awesome.
Yeah. And then the last question I always ask people is, what gives you hope for the future of Newberg?
Well, for Newberg, I have to say, right, like this town is blessed. I know it has a whole lot of churches in it, but I say that because the police department is amazing here in this town, and it's greatly supported by the town, right? Same thing for the fire department. So you have the most amazing first responders in this town. I'll also say this town has a ton of first responders who live in it. All over the area, right? So odds are there's a cop or a firefighter in your neighborhood here. So feel safe, right? Like it's just a very safe town. It has a great city manager, and him. I've had the opportunity, to work with a whole businesses in town and a lot of individuals, and it's just a great community. It's very supportive of each other, so that gives me hope in the future for sure.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Leo. Not only just for being here today, but for what you do and the role you serve. It is a mission. Often people, like you said, think of missions as going to some third world country, not recognizing that there is such a profound need here where we are. So thank you for today. Thank you for what you do. And I hope this is a good opportunity for people to learn about you and support you, and that you can continue on with the path God has for you.
Yeah. Sounds good. God is good.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Giving Town podcast. Our mission with this podcast is to provide hope and inspiration to our community by sharing the stories of the amazing leaders here. This podcast is brought to you by my real estate team, the Joyful Roberts Group. And whether you're looking to buy or sell your home anywhere around Newberg and beyond, we would love to serve you. Also, don't forget to subscribe to our newsletter with the link in the show notes, and I'll catch you in the next episode.